Give it up for the veterans. Where are our veterans? Stand up if you're a veteran. That's changed in 50 years, huh? Amen, amen. This is the day the Lord has made, and we are to rejoice and be glad in it. Be glad in it. So the Lord gave us two main commands, right? Love God with your heart, your mind, your soul, and then love your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, really, we've been talking about putting God first all year long in our lives. Nothing really changes until you do that. That's the foundational part, you know. That's where our heart is, you know, because sometimes we don't understand it. If you go into any profession and you talk to someone who's been very successful in that profession, and they give you advice and they say, hey, listen, this is critical. This is the key thing. This is the most important part. Well, there are many parts, right? And what happens is we often forget, and then we try everything else, and we wonder, why didn't we have the success that person had? And it's usually because we didn't follow what they said was the most important thing. This morning, I'm telling you, the most important thing is you got to put God first. It has to be practical in your life. Until that happens, you're always going to struggle. You're going to struggle with sin. You're going to struggle with this. You're going to struggle with that. You're going to up and down, like James said, right? 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in heaven. Double-minded person is unstable in all things. Don't let that person think they will receive anything from the Lord. So James said, he said, look, if you're double-minded, if you're kind of in and out, back and forth, it's unstable, and don't expect God to give you anything while you're in that state. So put God first in your life, and then all these things start working out. But that has to be the constant. A constant over a period of time. Over time, not today I decided to put God first, tomorrow my life is totally different. It's going to take a while. But the second is like unto the first. Love your, say it again?
Neighbor.
As yourself. As we discovered in the parable of the Good Samaritan, who is your neighbor? Well, everybody is your neighbor. We're all neighbors. And so we've been talking about, if we're called to neighbor, how should we neighbor? How to neighbor? So a couple of weeks ago, we started out talking about racism. How we deal with different races, how God would have us do that. Last week we talked about adoption and fostering a child. You know, the Lord said that orphans are not the government's responsibility. It's our responsibility as a church. And if there are kids in needs, then we're the ones that ought to be involved in doing something about it. This week I want to talk about helping, or rather empowering the poor. Empowering the poor. Now, you have to understand that American poverty is different from poverty around the world. Okay, it's a little different. American poverty is, I'm still using an iPhone 4. Okay? If you got an iPhone 4, you're in poverty, right? If you're taking public transportation in America, you're in poverty. Okay? If you're living in a single wide, you might say, okay, I'm in poverty. But that's not real poverty when we look at the rest of the world. The rest of the world. Other countries don't look like ours. You know, for us, a poor person might say, you know, my fridge is empty. In most parts of the world, people say, fridge? What are you talking about? I don't even have a fridge. I'm walking 15 miles just to find water, to see if I can sustain myself today. Okay, so everything is relevant. Not to minimize those of us or you in this country who have less than others. There are those who are in what we would consider poverty in areas. Now, I'll tell you what, I know, and it's kind of funny, but I know several homeless people that actually do have phones. And I always thought that was kind of crazy. In many places, structurally unsound, people living in structurally unsound rooms or shacks, made out of metal, whatever they can find, right? There's no bathrooms, they just go out in the woods. My sister, who has done a lot of mission work, knows what it is to go to the bathroom out in the woods and stuff like that. Because there is no plumbing. There is no such thing as plumbing. Where people bathe is the same water they used to drink in a lot of places in the world today. And so we take things into perspective. It doesn't take away any of our hurt. I know what it is to have lack. I've had it in our lives. We've had plenty of lack. And I understand that. But poverty is impacting so many people, not only around the world, but sometimes in our backyard. Now, it's interesting how Jesus said, I was hungry and you gave me food, and I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you invited me into your home. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. And of course the disciples were like, Jesus, what are you talking about? We haven't done any of this stuff for you. And then in Matthew 25:40, Jesus said this. He says, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Whatever you did for them, you did for me. And so there's a greater part of this. Because Jesus is saying that when you help the poor, when you help those in need, you're really helping me. You see? It's not just them. There's a bigger picture. In Proverbs 19, the Bible says, if you help the poor, you are lending to the Lord. If you help the poor, you're lending to the Lord. The first time I read that, I thought, that's kind of cool. Boy, the Lord kind of owes me something. I'm lending it to the Lord. Most of the time, if I lend something, Miriam and I have a philosophy, we don't lend money. We just give it. Because if you lend money, you're probably going to end up losing a friend or a family. Right? So if we have it, we give it. If we don't have it, we don't. We don't lend. But I like that idea that when you help the poor, you're lending to the Lord. 1 John 3:17 says, if anyone has material possession and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, then how can the love of God be in that person? Hey, if you look upon someone in need and go, wow, that's terrible. Okay. Move on with your life and you really don't care. God says, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with our words or speech, but with what?
Actions.
With what?
Actions.
Actions, right? Love is an action word. Love is not an emotion. Love is an action. Right? We don't show love by saying, I love you. It's the life you live. So, how do we help? How do we help those in need? How do we help the poor? Let's step back first and ask the question, so what is poverty? What is poverty? We've seen there's kind of a difference. A writer works here. I didn't write his name down. The writer, I'm quoting from his book called When Helping Hurts. And here's what he had to say about this. It's, most Americans define poverty as a lack of something material, right? When we think of poverty, the first thing we think of is material. What I have, what I don't have, what I think I should have, what others have. We think material. Not enough income, inadequate housing, not enough clean water or food, good health care, My car doesn't have AC. That kind of stuff. That's what we're thinking. We're thinking materially when we think of poverty. But there was a survey done by the World Bank of over 60,000 people in low-income countries. 60,000 people in low-income countries were surveyed. And here's what they said was poverty. When they were asked to describe poverty or to define it, they said this. They used the word shame, feeling of worthlessness, fear, humiliation, or hopelessness. Hopelessness. In other words, that feeling of being trapped, that you're never going to get ahead, that you're not going to have access to the education you need, or the whatever it is that you need to move up in life. It's a sense of hopelessness that you feel like no matter what you do, you're not going to go anywhere. So how do we help them change not just what they have, but what they think? Because here's what he said. He said, the truly poor define poverty then as a mindset. We describe it as lack of material. We think of poverty, we think of material things. But when you actually ask people around the world who are living in poverty, they'll tell you that poverty is a mindset. Okay? You know, it's like this one time I was listening to this pastor who, they were going to this village and do ministry, right? So they decided, you know what, we're going to take, they had tons of t-shirts left over from their church. And we thought, wouldn't that be great to give everybody t-shirts in that town? Wouldn't that be great? So they went in there and they flooded the town with t-shirts, only to find out that there was a lady who lived, who her whole existence was based on being able to provide shirts and clothes for the people in that village. And what this church basically did was come in and wipe her out. Totally bankrupt her. They gave clothes to everybody. And now, what is she going to do? And here this church thinking, oh, we're going to help them out. They were so excited at what good they were going to do. And instead they went in there and boy, pretty much destroyed this woman's business completely. And we're talking about, So, the big difference, and here's where I want to make some distinctions as we go through today talking about this. There's a difference between a handout and a hand up. Okay? Remember that. Difference between a handout and a hand up. The third thing in this book was that the root of all poverty is brokenness. The root of all poverty is brokenness. It's a broken relationship with God. We live in a sin-filled, painful world. So there is a broken relationship with God. There's a broken relationship with self. People feeling low self-esteem, not feeling good about themselves, about what they can do, or where they can go, what they can accomplish. There's a broken relationship with others, right? Which is where we get our self-centeredness, exploitation of those that we can get over. We can, do something to better ourselves on top of somebody else. Sometimes we'll do it. And Jesus really came to fix broken systems: political, economical, social, spiritual. Remember in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talks about those who are poor in spirit. Right? So poverty is not just material things. Sometimes we are spiritually bankrupt. Sometimes we're emotionally bankrupt. Sometimes, there's different areas of our lives that can be totally in poverty. And it has nothing to do with just our material possessions. Jesus is in Nazareth. He's at the temple, and they ask him to speak, and he gets up there, and he unfolds the scrolls, and he begins to preach or teach and read. And here's what he says in Luke 4. Jesus says, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to who? Proclaim the good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, recovery of sight for the blind, set the oppressed free, proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And later on, a few verses later, Jesus says, "And today it is fulfilled." So Jesus came to fix these broken systems that we have in our lives. He comes to bring good news to the poor, to the prisoner, to the blind, to the oppressed. Okay? To proclaim that freedom to them. It is Christ who saves. It is Christ who heals. It is Christ who sets us free. And we have to begin by understanding that. That's all based on what Christ has done and what Christ can do. Not you and me. Y'all got that? You got to set a distinction. We are called to help the poor and the needy. Okay? But we're not called to give out handouts. We're called to give hands up. And understand that it's Christ who saves, it is Christ who heals, it is Christ who sets us free. So we're called, first of all, number one, to serve others, not save others. Got that? See, that's critical because, see, there's some believers, which is great, that you have that desire to help. Right? You just have that desire. I'll have to refer to my wife, who is constantly. I mean, I've got to slow her down. And one of the things I have to remind her all the time is, remember, we're here to serve others, not save others. We can't save anybody. You cannot save anybody. You're not the hero of the story. Christ is the hero of the story. Okay? We're here to serve. We're here to be the servants unto the Lord. But it is His job to save people, not ours. And sometimes we get so caught up in wanting to help, even if we do it with good intentions, but we're trying to save people. We're trying to help them to the point of saving them out of the situation. We oftentimes will do that with our kids, right? We're always there to save them from some situation. We don't want them to stub their toe. We don't want them to fall down. We don't want them to make those big mistakes. So what do? We fall over ourselves to save them. But guess what? You can't save them. Only Christ can save them. All we can do is serve others. See, it's insulting and dangerous to think, I'm the answer. What problem do you have? I've got the answer. I'm the one that can help you. I'm the one that can save you from this situation. And somehow I have to get on my horse and run out to where you are. No. We're here to serve, not save. Jesus is the answer. I'm only the servant. So how does Jesus want me to serve? How does Jesus want me to serve then? Well, I believe in two ways: relief and restoration. Relief, right? Immediate temporary help during and after a crisis. Right? We just recently had this hurricane. A lot of people got wiped out. Right? So we're called to serve and help in relief. And that's an immediate thing. That's where we can send money to different places to help those people. We can get on a bus with the Southern Baptists and head over there. You know, we have all forgotten about Texas, Florida. We still hear a little bit about Puerto Rico. But life moves on. But if you go to any of these places, what you're going to find is tons of churches are still in those areas ministering day in and day out. They haven't forgotten. That's our responsibility. So we are to help or serve for immediate relief. Something happened, someone lost the job. All of a sudden, boom. So you want to be able to serve them, be able to help them out during this emergency time. A sudden tragedy happens in someone's life. You want to be there for them. You want to be able to help them. But that's just that temporary, that immediate relief that somebody needs. Maybe they just need to have someone there with them. Whatever it might be, that's the immediate relief. So we want to serve in relieving some of the stress or whatever they might be that a person is going through. Y'all got that so far? Okay. And Arthur kind of brought it up when the Sosas, there was a time in their life where they were living, okay, was a dangerous place. It wasn't safe and secure for these kids. I remember Alex talking about some guy crawling in through a window one night, and he would sleep with a big bat by his bed because they were in a very, very unhealthy environment. And so we as a church went and we helped them out. You know, we stored the home, sealed everything up. It was temporary. All it was, hey, let's give them a place where they can come in at night, be able to go to sleep, and not feel like their life's in danger. Right? It was temporary relief. Didn't change their lives, didn't make a big deal, but it gave them some temporary relief of the situation. The other one is restoration. Now, restoration is different because this is long-term relationship to rebuilding wholeness. Y'all see the difference? In other words, there's a time when someone is in need and you're able to help that need that moment. You've got something that can really make a difference, and it's temporary. You're just going to come in and out. Boom, boom, help, and go. But we're also called for restoration, which is a lot more difficult and a lot longer. It's really begin to investing in someone's life. Trying to make that change and trying to really figure out how can we help, whether it be rebuilding a community, or rebuilding a house, a community, restoring God's design, wholeness to a person, where we mentor them, we disciple them, we try to get them through long term. If we think about it, again, going back to the Sosa family, right? Much later on, we develop a relationship with them, figure out what they need, try to mentor them, try to be there for them, help them out in their daily life. It went from okay, we need to do this right now because there's a need, fix it. But then later on came the relationships and the helping and the being there for them. I think we weren't there for them a lot of times what they wanted. It was more of, what do we feel spiritually that they needed? What they needed was guidance, not a whole bunch of money or this or that. I'm sure they would have taken the money, right? But we could have poured a bunch of money. We could have given them all money. Here, go buy this, go buy that, go buy that. Would that have helped? I don't know. Would that have changed anything? I don't know. We didn't do that. What we did was we tried to be there for them for a long period of time. And many times they got no from us. A lot of times they got in your face from us. A lot of times it was like, no, that's not right. Don't do that. Well, no, just, hey, whatever you want, here it is. And so, like we see with the Good Samaritan, right? Good Samaritan saw the guy on the ground, hurt, dying. He sees him laying there, and he says, well, I got to do something. So he does the immediate relief. He goes there, gets him, fixes him up, bandages up, stops the bleeding, right? Maybe a little CPR, whatever it took to get him stable. That was the immediate relief. But then after that, he took him to a hotel, said, hey, you give him whatever he needs, let him rest, let him restore, I'll pay for the bill, don't worry about it, see? Which was more of a restoration. Number two, God's calling us to help by relating with people, not rescuing people. Relate to people, not rescue people. Again, oftentimes when we, as believers, sometimes we try to help and we help too much. You know what I'm talking about? We go too far. We need to relate to people, relate to where they are, to what their needs are, and how we can spiritually and holistically help them, as opposed to trying to rescue people. You ever rescue anybody? You ever try to rescue somebody? stairs. Man, how many people have you tried to rescue? It's a better question. Not have you ever, but I guarantee you all have tried to rescue someone. Amen? Right? Someone you thought, wow, I really need to get involved because this person's going this way or that way, or they need that, so I'm going to help them. Boy, look, they're broke again. They're going to lose their house. They're going to lose their car. They're going to lose their iPhone. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce out all the money. I'm going to do this for them. I'm going to help them. Right? I'm going to rescue them. And what happens just about every time you rescue someone? Exactly. A few months later, they're back in the same hole, calling you on the phone. I need you to rescue me again. And so Jesus says, no. We want you to relate to people. Relate to people. Get to know them. Get to understand them. Okay? And try to help them help themselves. Okay? Not being rescued. We're not 911. We're not there to rescue anyone. So God knows those people, and guess what? God cares for them. And guess what? I guarantee you, God cares for them more than you do. Amen? You're trying to rescue them, and God's saying they don't need your rescue. What they need is me. Those struggling are not projects for you to help. They're people for you to love. And if we're not careful, we get into that mentality where we start doing this. We start seeing people as projects. Well, I'm going to help this person. I'm going to get them to do this and that. And look what I'm going to do here. And all of a sudden, we're Superman. And we're not. That's not what God's calling us to do. We're not supposed to be rescuing. We're supposed to be relating to them. They're not projects for us to accomplish. They are people that we're supposed to be loving. Okay? Like the children's home, for example. I remember one time we went to the children's home. And we took a bunch of stuff, and we took all this stuff. We felt so good because we were bringing all this stuff to the children's home. And once we sat down and we started talking to the people there, guess what we discovered? They didn't need all that stuff. You know what they needed? They needed someone who would be willing to sit down and talk with these kids. There's some who are teenagers and they're about to be kicked out of the program and have no idea what to do. And they needed someone who would be able to take their time and talk to them and minister to them and pray with them. That's what they wanted. Not all the stuff we brought, but we thought we're going to rescue everybody. Yay! Here we come with all the goodies. Look how good it makes me feel to bring this stuff. I'm the hero. They didn't need any of it. What they wanted was the time. What they wanted was for you to invest time in a relationship with these kids. That's what they needed. See, often we never even ask, what do you need? What do you really need? Not what do you want? Right? You know the difference? Not what do you want, but what do you really need? Because sometimes the need is not what we see immediate. Sometimes what we're looking at is just a symptom and not the problem. And if you continually try to help the symptom, what's going to happen? Nothing ever changes, right? How many of you know somebody you helped that has never changed? And you've helped a dozen times and you're already at the point where, you know what, I'm just not going to do this anymore. Anybody? Am I the only one that knows somebody like that, right? Right? Been there, done that. You help them, and the problem is that you're just trying to rescue them and you're trying to fix the issue, but it's not the issue. Oftentimes, it's that broken relationship with God. See? The reason the life is a mess and the reason all this is going is because their relationship with God is broken. And you're focusing on this, well, that's not going to change anything. You're just going to go round and round and round and round until you get tired. And you know what happens when you get tired? They will find someone else to replace you. They'll find someone else to call every time until that person is wiped out. And they'll find someone else. One of the first things that I taught, I've mentored young men in ministry, and one of the first things I teach them is that I think there's two types of people. And I've said this before. There are givers and takers. Right? Givers and takers. Some people are takers. And the truth is that nobody wants to give to a taker, but everybody wants to give to a giver. Right? Think about that for a second. Nobody wants to give to a taker. Everybody wants to give to a giver. If you help someone for years, and one day you have a need, right? You're a person that helps everybody. And one day you have a need, you're going to have a dozen people wanting to help you, right? Because they're all saying, Mom, that person's helped me so many times. Now's my opportunity to do something for them. But if you're a taker, and you just take, and every time the phone rings, it's like, oh, I wonder what they, right? Then nobody wants to give to you. Nobody wants to help you because you're a taker. And rule number one that I teach and we live by is this. I will never help someone more than they can help themselves. I will never do for someone what they can do for themselves. See? And that's very difficult. That's very difficult to do because sometimes we're compelled. But the truth is we're not there to rescue. We're not there to rescue. What many people want is dignity. They want to be able to contribute. They want to have value. And oftentimes these are the parts of the need that we don't see because we're focused on the last part. When a person is constantly broke, for example, you're always broke, you're always broke. What is the issue? The issue is not the money, right? The issue is learning how to. So if we keep pouring money into it, you don't solve the problem. If a person is constantly breaking up, if there's a marriage and there's constantly the husband leaves the house every 3 months, he's leaving, and then comes back, and leaves and comes back. Okay, there are greater problems. They might be talking about money or this or that, but there's always a deeper issue. Okay, and unless you begin to relate with the person, if you really care, you start digging, you realize, look, I can't rescue you, but I can pray for you, I can help you, I can teach you. See, I can give you wisdom and knowledge in order for you to make the change. Because if there's one thing I've learned in life, is that I cannot change you. Amen? Amen? Look at the person next to you and say, you can't change me. Right? You can't change me. Only I can change me. See, when you help decide, you will never do what they can do for themselves. Before you start helping someone, decide in your mind, I am not going to do anything that they can do for themselves. I want to help them help themselves. I don't want to rescue them. And if you're doing all the work, then you are rescuing them. You see? You're trying to be the savior. You're trying to be the big shot here. Okay? They do all the work. You come in and support. Right? What do you need to do your job? I got to dig a hole. You know what? I will help you with getting a shovel. I'm not digging the hole for you. I will help you with the shovel. I'll give you a ride to the hole. Alright? But I ain't digging. You got to dig. Now you get 3/4 of the way done and you're exhausted, I'll jump in the hole with you. But, you know, I've been with someone that has got a flat tire, male, not a female, male, big dude, standing there looking at me like, and I'm like, dude, I'm not going to take your tire, you crazy? It ain't going to happen. Okay? Now, if he had 2 broken arms, I'd do it. Okay? But I'm not going to do for them what they can do for themselves. See, those struggling, again, are not projects for you. They're people for you to love. They're not projects. Remember that. Finally, we are called to reach out, not reach down. Reach out, not reach down. Okay. Reaching out, that's where we help, and we find that balance in the need. Reaching down makes me what? Makes me better than you. Okay, we don't look down on people. we're not the ones that have all the great answers. And look how great my life is, and I'm going to help you because you are so pitiful. And we need to be careful. And we want to reach out to people, but we don't want to reach down. And also be careful, because oftentimes we think we can pull people out. Right? How many times have we seen this? I've said this 1,000 times, right? What's easier, to pull somebody up or to pull somebody down? Which one's easier? Pulling them down. And so while you're standing there like that, on the edge, just remember, that's a lot easier for that person to pull you down, to drag you into their mud, into their mess, than it is for you to pull them out. You are not there to save them. You're not there to rescue them. You're not there to look down on them. No. We're to serve them. We're to relate with them. We're to reach out to them. How can I help you? What do you need? How can I be part of the solution? And let them come up with it. Let them do the hard work. Let them do all the heavy lifting. They've got to do the work. We often get in this because we want to help, because we have desire. And I'm assuming that we as believers have the desire, because if we love God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and we are going to love our neighbor as ourselves, then we're going to care when we see someone in need. It ought to ring something in us. We ought to be compelled to stop what we're doing and say, wow, I need to get involved here. But having said that, what we don't want to do is become the solution. Who is the solution? God's the solution. Christ is the solution. Remember, I'm poor too. Remember, I'm needy too. I've got issues too. I've got situations in my life that I struggle with. I'm often poor in spirit. Sometimes my spirit gets quenched. Sometimes I have a need. Sometimes I don't understand something. Sometimes, so I am broken too. And so if I'm broken too, how am I going to help you in my own strength? You see? That's why I don't. I do it in the strength of Christ, in His strength. And with His wisdom, I try to serve. See, when we keep a mindset, we avoid that us and them language. Right? When we keep that mindset that we're here to serve them, we leave them. No, because you know how they are. Because he's always been like this. You see what I'm saying? So we're not going to separate us and them. The mindset is we're all to love our neighbor. We're all to be compelled to help, to be involved. Brady Brown wrote this. He said, "We've divided the world into those who need help and those who offer help. The truth is, we are both." And that's exactly what we have to understand. We're not the answer. We are an instrument that God can use. Okay? Just like a broom is a great thing to sweep. It doesn't make the broom the greatest thing in the world. It just makes it easier to clean. Okay? We are an instrument of God for His use, how He wants to use us. Okay, so we need to allow Him to do it and let Him be the focus. And understand that sometimes the problem is not the air conditioner, that there are deeper issues involved. Issues that might take a little time, might take a little investment of yours to relate to them, to be there for them, to console them, okay? But not to save them. Remember, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for this day. Father, there are so many needs in the world. Lord, oftentimes we feel like our problems are the greatest problem. Our issues are the biggest issues. But the truth is that there are places in this world that are so much worse situations. Father, help us to understand that we're not the answer, you are. That we're not the Savior, you are. Let us come with the love of Christ into a situation, Lord, to be able to actually make a difference. And not just give a handout, throw money at something, or do it just to feel good about it. But to do it because we are serving you, and we are called to love our neighbor. May we have that spirit in us, Lord God. We ask this in Christ's name. And all God's people said, Amen. Let's stand together.